Hey everyone, Nick Frias here with Koki Riley for the Brewers Preview Podcast, where we are going to talk about the offseason acquisitions they had. We're going to talk about the Fangraphs projections for them, and we might give a little preview into way too early playoff projections, but we'll see how we go. So, Koki, what are your thoughts on the offseason acquisitions?
It was a very aggressive offseason for the Milwaukee Brewers, especially on the outfield front with the addition of Christian Yelich through trade and Lorenzo Cain through the free agent market. It was a very interesting offseason for the Brewers, and they were certainly aggressive in trying to be a contender for the postseason this season. But I will say that they have not added enough in the rotation for me to think that they're like a real World Series contender or even a contender to win a fairly tough NL Central division. But it should be a very interesting Brewers season for sure.
Yeah, I agree that they definitely were extremely aggressive in the outfield front and in the offseason in general. They might contend for a playoff spot, but I'm not sold on them as a World Series contender, especially for as long as Jimmy Nelson's out, because even with him in, they're still kind of suspect at the starter position, and with him out, it just gets even worse.
One of the keys to their success last season was that a lot of their younger pitchers like overpitched to their expectations, and you see that in the numbers. I think nearly all their top three of their top four starters had lower ERAs than FIPS. So that's just an indication that they got a little lucky last year. But the one pitcher who did outpitch his FIP was Jimmy Nelson, and now he's hurt. So there's some talent there for sure, but at the same time, like I would be a little suspect of their rotation for sure.
Yeah, that starting rotation's probably going to be what does them in either before the playoffs or early on in the playoffs, because while offensive firepower and a good bullpen is enough to win you a wild card game if you can get there, it's not going to win them multiple series.
Yeah, push you over the edge, so to say. The fact that Ulysse Chassin was their like big time pickup in the rotation is kind of sad. Like he's like a number 5 pitcher.
And he'll probably have to pitch 2 or 3 for them.
Yeah, and they don't really have like a number 5 pitcher at the moment. So it's like Chase Anderson, Zach Davies are the top 2 starters. They're fine and all if they're like towards the 3-4 spots in the rotation.
Neither of them are aces.
Yeah, they don't have a definable ace on this team, which is by far their biggest weakness.
Jimmy Nelson might be their ace when he's healthy, but we don't know how long he'll be out for.
Yeah, exactly. So reports say he had shoulder surgery around September-ish and isn't expected to return until June. These are just the preliminary reports that I see.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Brewers as a whole, they certainly did improve this offseason by adding Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich, as we mentioned earlier. Yelich is a young player, 26 years old, and he's only getting better, in my opinion at least. His win runs created plus has been over 103 years straight now, and with a player of his immense talent could really help this Brewers team, and especially in more of like a baseball city, in more of a baseball competitive environment, which he's never been in Miami.
Yeah.
So this should be interesting to see him in Milwaukee.
Well, not only that, but the addition of Lorenzo Cain, who at the plate has kind of overperformed.
He's a little
and
overrated.
Is becoming,
Yeah.
He overperformed
he's good,
early,
but he's still a little overrated. But yeah, continue.
He's gonna fit in perfectly in their leadoff spot.
Yeah.
When you can have Yelich at batting second and Thames or Shaw batting third and then Braun batting fourth, like Cain will fit in perfectly in that one spot because he can just make contact and get on base.
Yeah. But the guy knows the organization well too. He was originally with the Brewers and the Royals traded for him in the Zach Greinke trade, I believe. So
I think that was what it was.
Yeah. It was the Zach Greinke trade.
What's going to be huge, though, is the addition of Cain in center field means that they're going to have a true defensive center fielder, and it's going to put less stress defensively on Braun and Yelich.
Yelich is a good defender, too. They have good defense in the outfield. Like, they have a very solid group. It's not just offensively. Offensively, they have the firepower to be a top 5 outfield in all of Major League Baseball, but defensively, they're also top 5 in my opinion. They're excellent out there. Their infield is fascinating. There's a hole or two there, but at the same time, like there's certainly some talent. I look at Orlando Arcia as a guy who's a former top 10 prospect in Major League Baseball. That guy is certainly a talent
there,
and defensively, he's already there. He certainly has the talent to be a breakout performer next season, and he'll be very interesting to see. And another strength they have in the infield is at third base with Travis Shaw, a guy who, with the Red Sox, as a Red Sox fan seeing him, I always thought he'd be like a power bat off the bench for the rest of his career, so I didn't mind trading him away for Tyler Thornburg, and Thornburg got hurt, and all of a sudden Shaw's like a top 10 third baseman in baseball. And it's been really confusing to see that, especially given that the numbers don't like indicate that he got lucky or anything like that. His BABIP's normal, and he hit 31 home runs anyway and drove in 100 runs. He's gonna be very interesting, guys. See if he can replicate that, even as a player who wasn't regarded as the most talented player coming up in through the system.
Yeah, and then obviously, while the left side of the infield is fantastic because there's a lot of talent there, and Shaw's he's hit at least a portion of his potential. I think he's got more to go, but he's doing really well. We haven't seen the full potential of Orlando Arcia, but the right side of the infield is not great.
It's not ideal. I know Eric Thames hit 31 home runs last year, but his splits look very suspect, to say the least.
And he'll be fine defensively because he's at first base.
And the advanced metrics say that he's definitely going to drop off next year. But they have depth there with Jesus Aguilar. They can fit him right in there. In limited time last year, he had 16 home runs, and his advanced measurables look pretty good. So I think Jesus Aguilar is a guy to look out for as a guy who can come in there at first base eventually at some point during the season. Second base is their biggest hole. Would you agree?
It's their biggest hole, but the nice thing is if Jesus Aguilar does show up and he can produce at a good enough clip, then they can either, depending on how Thames does, they have 2 first basemen that they could use one of as trade bait to pick up a second baseman, because right now it's between Jonathan VR and Eric Sogard to play second base. And
VR had a 288 on base percentage last year, and Sogard is like a utility guy at this point. Just barely good enough to be a utility guy. They don't have anywhere near a starting second baseman.
And
it's a huge issue.
Their current minor league guys are Nick Franklin and Javier Betancourt.
And Nick Franklin's not a major leaguer anymore, and nor is Javier Betancourt. So they're really rough at second base. So, and Neil Walker, who was on their team last year, got hurt, only played 40 games, is still a free agent. They could sign him.
If they can get him back, that would bolster that lineup
really
a
bolster
lot.
It, but then it's the question of, can he stay healthy? But it's still, that's much better off than having whoever the heck at second base. With all of that said, another hole they have, I think, is at catcher. Stephen Vogt is a player who's been an all-star before, who's had power, but last year did not perform anywhere near to what he's had in the past. I think he's just getting old. I don't know, man. I think he's getting old.
It'll be interesting to see how he does. They have a couple guys. Jet Bandy's not very good.
Yeah, Jet Bandy's not good.
But they have he's not good. They have Manny Pena if they need to throw someone in.
Yeah, Manny Pena was decent last year, but I think he's like a platoon guy. 278, but only like a 320 on base percentage. He doesn't really get on base that well. He's fine, I guess, as a backup.
Yeah.
But Jacob Nottingham's a guy who's like been in and out of like top 10 catcher prospects in Major League Baseball for years, and that's a guy who might be able to contribute for them at some point during the year. But it's tough to say. Like, they got a hole at catcher, and it's not like they have like a defensive stalwart like a Tucker Barnhart or a Martin Maldonado. It's just like they have all these meddling catchers, but it's not a huge issue since most of the teams in Major League Baseball have like average to below average catchers.
Well, and you're gonna
hitters compared to the rest of the league. But
no matter how good your team is, you're always gonna have one or two holes at the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean that's their holes, 7 and 8, and like they have a good. They're gonna have a solid top 6 as long as they stay healthy, and it's just a matter of, what happens at second base and what happens at catcher, especially from a hitting perspective. So and the only thing we haven't really looked over when it comes to the Brewers roster is that bullpen.
Which, I mean, when it comes to the 7th, 8th inning on, Barnes and Knebel will be more than enough to limit damage.
Yeah,
the problem is just that starting rotation could kill them in a lot of games by putting them in a hole early.
Yeah, that is the word. Because Knebel, I really think is like a top 5 closer in baseball, ish. I mean, he's amazing.
He's definitely up there.
Yeah, he's amazing. And then Barnes is fine. Josh Hader's good. I think Matt Albert's had a very good year last year. Losing Swarzak's going to hurt them a little bit in the bullpen. But they're not horrible. Their bullpen's not horrible. It's not a big weakness that they have. They have a mix of lefties and righties. Hader, and they added Boone Logan as another lefty. I don't know about Boone Logan anymore, but
I couldn't tell you.
Well, what I mean, I don't know about Boone Logan anymore. It's like, I don't know about this guy. Is he good anymore? The answer is probably not. But 33 years old, lefty. It's not horrible, but not ideal. Anyway, I wouldn't say their bullpen's certainly not a threat to be like bad or anything like that.
No.
They're not a threat to like blow up,
ruin the team.
This team certainly did improve, as we said multiple times already this offseason, and I think Brewers fans should be excited for the fact that their management went out and made these moves, especially in the outfield this offseason.
Oh yeah, and there's still some time to make some more moves, but even if these are the only moves they make, the Brewers are on the right track.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell if they'll make the playoffs just with how
deep everything is. Yeah,
not only their division but the National League is.
Yeah,
but they're definitely on the right track.
Yeah,
Fangraphs has them at 78 and 84,
it's a little rough. I think it's a little rough in my opinion, but
I think it's a little lower than how they're gonna finish. They finished last season.
They were
86 and 76
team. Yeah, 86-win team.
And I think they can at least match that or come close to matching that this year, whether they make the playoffs or not. I think they'll
contend.
They'll hit the 80-win plateau.
Yeah.
Maybe go 80 and 82, or maybe hit exactly 500.
And we're only saying this because there's a lot of skepticism with their rotation. And I know Jake Arrieta's sitting out there, but like, it's question is, will they want to pay up again for Arrieta? So
if they can bolster that rotation, just adding either an ace, or someone in the bottom half that can just, because if I were the Brewers, I'd take 2 or 3 5 guys that were a good second or third line starter. It wouldn't be fantastic, but it would get you where you need to go.
Anderson and Davies. Nelson's hurt right now. So you're saying like if they added, Alex Cobb.
Yeah, someone like.
So they add Alex Cobb, and he's not an ace, but it helps fortify the rotation.
He'll bolster that rotation until Nelson can get back in June.
Yeah.
And then that way they're already still in contention.
Yeah. And the thing is,
that way they're still in, because I think they can contend for the wild card spot this year.
Yeah.
But say they bolster their rotation, whether it's with a true ace or with just another guy to knock Wade Miley out of the rotation right now.
Yeah.
Then they'll
non-roster invite Wade Miley.
Yeah.
It's a worry that they picked up Wade Miley because it's like, the guy can eat innings.
Yeah.
Which is why they picked him up.
But that's not what
no.
I mean, that's fine for a 5 starter if you have an ace, but that's not what they need.
No.
But if they can just pick up a guy like Cobb or one of the other number 2, number 3 starters sitting around right now, then I think it would keep them in contention for the divisional pennant until June. And then when Nelson comes back in late June,
they can reassess their team and make a move at the deadline.
Exactly, and I don't think even if they get Nelson back and make a nice move, I don't think they're winning that division. But then they're almost a shoo-in for the wild card at that point.
Yeah. Domingo Santana's a guy who was excellent for them last year. hit 30 home runs as a starting outfielder. Now he's no longer starting. He's a guy who they could use as a trade piece at some point and get a pitcher.
Santana, like we said, either Aguilar or Thames, depending on how either of them does.
And they have another prospect, Brett Phillips. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that they could deal to get get a pitcher for. Those are just two options.
And Bethancourt's one of those journeyman guys that continues to just get thrown into trades because he's a good bullpen catcher that can be thrown into the game once every couple of weeks to give your catcher some rest.
Yeah. But I don't think they're gonna trade away Keston Hiura, who's who was their first round pick.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna make any.
No, they're not gonna want to totally mortgage their future on this season. But I think they have They have a ton of outfield depth now, which they can turn that into starting pitching, and they have the pieces to improve that starting pitching. It's a matter of how willing are they to do that, because so far it's been nothing on that front. But it'll be interesting to see. This is one of the more fascinating teams in the National League, at least in my opinion.
Them along with the Rockies.
The Rockies,
and the Diamondbacks fascinate me, not because I think they overperformed this past year.
The Diamondbacks?
But the fact that they could still compete for a wild card spot just fascinates me. The Giants fascinate me with the bolstered.
Yeah, the bolstered lineup,
nothing
bolstered
great,
outfield.
But it helps.
Yeah.
And when you've already got that rotation or the top half of that rotation.
Well, you have Bumgarner.
You have Bumgarner and Cueto as your top
horrible.
two.
Yeah.
Samardzija as a
Cueto
third
might bounce
guy.
back. Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of these middle contending teams in the National League.
The Mets.
The Mets are a team. Yeah.
The Braves. They don't quite fascinate me even as a Braves fan yet, but they're a team that
has pieces.
Swanson is more or less the Braves version of Orlando Arcia, where he's got the defensive talent. He's definitely already a top 5 defensive
player,
shortstop.
Yeah,
maybe even top 3.
He
hasn't hit quite yet.
Arcia was a better hitter, but he hasn't hit. But I agree with what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But if Swanson shows up, they've got Acuna's supposed to be okay.
Yeah,
they'll have Camargo along with Freddie Freeman and Albies to fill out the infield, and Inciarte. So Markakis is the old piece there, but if he's your lineup downside, then that's not necessarily a horrible thing. And he's also he's good for home runs every once in a while.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll end up in the wild card, but they may contend much later than people think they will.
Yeah.
As in, you hit mid-July and then they'll fall off. Or they'll not fall off, but they'll just hit a point where even if they keep winning, they'll be too far behind.
Yeah. That's a really young and talented team that will hopefully be on the up on the uprise this year. But a team that's sort of both is the Mets.
Oh yeah.
It's a matter of if they stay healthy sort of thing, because they have Matz, Syndergaard, and DeGrom. We're not sure. We don't know what the heck's going on with Steven Matz, but we know that DeGrom and Syndergaard will be healthy to start the year, and those two guys are, when they're going, they're aces. Oh, and it's when you have that 1-2 punch, then you can stay into a lot of games, even if your hitting isn't pristine. And they did improve their hitting this year.
They definitely improved their hitting.
Yeah.
It's still nothing.
I don't know why. I don't know why they're going to want to start Adrian Gonzalez to start the year, but they have options out the bench when he inevitably stinks. Yeah. Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores can play first, and you can get away with it. I know he's not a good defensive player, but offensively his bat's good enough to plug in at first base and when they need him. Lagares is a defensive-minded outfielder that they need, but it's a matter. They have a lot of pieces. It's a matter of which pieces fit and what things stick with that Mets team. Yeah. They're very interesting. They added Frazier and Bruce, brought Bruce back, and it'll be interesting. Rosario in his first full year in the majors, will he be good? Yeah, they're a fascinating team.
They seem to me they fascinate me because, unlike the Brewers and the Braves, seem to me like teams that are rebuild. They're in the upper end of the final leg of their rebuild portion, where they're young teams that aren't quite contenders, but they're building that talent and they're young. The Mets seem to me like they're more of a win now mode with a lot of the moves they made this offseason.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because they've got some young guys that are still going to be good, but they getting guys like Bruce and Frazier that are in their prime or towards the end of their prime. The Mets offseason moves to me this year seemed like they were just trying to
stay relevant
and maybe win the division or get into the playoffs again.
Yeah. I mean, Nimmo off the bench. Like, it'll be interesting to see about this Mets team. They got that 1-2 punch at the top. They just added Jason Vargas. I don't know. Like, if he's gonna be their number 4 or 5 starter, it's fine. But like, as long as they're not relying on him too much by the end of the year, then they'll be okay. And their bullpen isn't horrible. They have some arms in the bullpen. Ramos will probably be the closer. Like the Mets are an interesting team. There's a lot of interesting teams in the NL. I would say the shoo-ins are Washington and
Chicago,
the Dodgers
and
Chicago.
Dodgers.
Those are the 3 shoo-ins. Everybody else I think it's kind of up for grabs.
But the crazy thing is, there's somewhere between 6 and 7 teams that could fight for wild card spots. Not all 6 or 7 of those teams have legitimate chances.
Yeah.
But between the Mets, Braves, Cardinals, Brewers, Giants, Rockies, and Diamondbacks even.
Yeah. Now,
those
Diamondbacks
7 teams could all
team, even though their hitting is very, very suspect coming this year.
But all 7 of those teams, really the only teams that aren't competing are the Padres, which are not the worst team in baseball anymore, but they're
bad.
They're the worst team in their division.
They're horrible.
The Reds and Pirates, who both fell off this.
The Reds have young pieces, but you just don't trust any. Yeah, you just don't trust any of it.
And the Pirates shipped off
everybody. So.
And the Phillies are going to be bad, and the Marlins might actually be one of the worst teams in baseball this year.
Yeah, the Phillies will be bad. Yeah, I agree. I agree with all that. The Mets, the Braves are the longest shot out of all the teams that were saying a wild card team. But at the same time, I mean,
if
it just takes all those young players just have to I don't say peak, but really perform. And we've seen it happen. Like young talent in baseball today has really been a factor more than ever.
And
young players showing up in the All-Star game all the time.
Don't be surprised if Swanson hits better this year because I think he was rushed in.
He might have been rushed in, yeah.
Definitely when they brought him in July of 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
I think he was rushed in because he got some experience, but it wasn't really necessary experience, and then because he had gotten that experience that kind of helped, they just shoved him right into the opening day lineup, which he wasn't ready for. So I think if you look at how he started hitting later in the year, Swanson, look for him to hit, at least 250 this year.
Yeah.
If not closer to 300.
Yeah. And So we're all in agreement that there's 6 teams that can fight for the 2 wild card spots.
There's 6 teams that could fight for 2 wild card spots.
And then there's 3. All the division winners are basically locks.
Yeah, because I think the Cubs underperformed last year.
Yeah, the Cubs adding Darvish, I think it makes them a lock. Because then they got Darvish, Lester, if he bounces back, and Arrieta. So, yeah. I want to thank you all for listening about this Brewers preview podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And have a nice day.